Next week, I will tell you this, next Friday, I've got one of my large brokers that I insure is going to join us. And if you want, maybe come up with some questions that you would like to ask a broker, just, you know, open mic comments, basically. So he's out of Columbus and they specialize more in refrigerated, but still, it's still a broker though that in dry van. Um, I think they do some flats, but not very much. They're probably 95% dry van and reefer. So
No asset at all,
no,
all
no.
third party. Okay.
Yep. So they're all, direct customers that they have that they're obviously booking the loads for, getting loads for. So if that makes sense.
There should be some very good content that Gabe can use out of that conversation. Because there's a huge interest right now with the market being down, Steve, on the Rate Per Mile Masters Facebook page, as an example.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of guys are clamoring for, oh, we need broker transparency. We need to know what a broker is making on each load.
Exactly. Right.
I disagree 100%. I can't say enough how I disagree with that statement. I disagree
Elaborate.
because capitalism will take care of itself.
Mm-hmm.
If a party is keeping too much of the profit and not paying the market rate, they will not attract trucks. If they are charging too much to the shipper, they will not attract shippers. And I don't particularly, when the market changes, as it will, I don't particularly want the government coming to me and saying, I need to know how much profit you're making,
Yeah, exactly.
because that information, it's not as clear cut. You have a guy that goes out and has a fleet of trucks, but he also includes under his fleet his bulldozer, his cattle trailer,
Mm-hmm.
his 1,000 acres in Wyoming he just bought because he's going to open a satellite yard out there, his dually, all 13 of his children doing work for him. That's not a true cost picture.
Good point. Good point. But then the IRS would say you shouldn't mingle transportation is transportation. Have a separate company for your 1,000 acre farm and your homestead of multiple families and children that you claim to be
However,
yours.
we know that people commingle daily. They
Right.
commingle daily, and hope that the auditor never comes by to look at the receipts and
Exactly.
say, really, you needed 40 toner cartridges, but you only bought one ream of paper, or
Exactly.
some such figure.
Right. 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 Exactly. So, but do come up with some questions, for him. And maybe, by Tuesday or Wednesday, if we could get him some topics and some questions that he can answer, we can go from there. That'll be good. So that would be March 1st, by the way, which is Friday, week from today. So, all
Excellent.
right. Okay. Very good. In those articles, the first, which I kind of doctored up the log falsification one here. I got that one all highlighted. I didn't really go into the driver road test one as much as to why it says here. Obviously, the article is, the crucial role of a commercial driver road tests. Now, I was not aware that there are, let's see here, there's some instances where you do not need to give a road test. It says here, I apologize, I should have thorough road test, use of best practices. I thought there was an exception. Okay. Carriers can accept the following instead of a conducting a road test as per FMCSA 391.33, a copy of a commercial driver's license valid for the vehicle that the driver will operate. Were you aware of that? That's what it says here. Carriers can accept exceptions to do the road test. So a carrier can accept if he's got a CDL and he's driving, a tractor. It says here the vehicle that the driver will operate, or a compliant road test certificate issued by a carrier within the past 3 years. I still, even though there's only two bullet points here as far as exceptions, but I would think you'd want to go through the road test regardless. Don't you? I mean, it's your equipment, that he's vested with, so to speak. You've got your own due diligence, I would think, to make sure that that is a capable driver of driving your equipment. So are you the one that actually does the road tests for every driver that you hire?
There have been a few occasions where we'll take one of our top guys and have him, but generally it's me.
Now, I've never been on a road test. I will say this though. Did you see on Facebook, Dexter, your driver, Dexter Scott, offered for me to go with him the next time, like his truck has to be picked up for service or something, and said I could video. And I said, Dexter, I really appreciate that, but the dash cam does a great job. It does a good enough job. I don't need to be in a truck. And by rights, technically, I shouldn't, without a CDOA, I really shouldn't be in that vehicle anyways. Correct?
We have been told that before.
Yeah.
And that you should, if you are in the jump seat, need to be logged on duty.
Right.
Which you can't do without a commercial driver's license.
Right. Right. So I mean, technically I'd be a passenger, and insurance companies frown on having passengers in the truck. So yes. Do you know why that is, by the way?
Liability.
Okay. Where do you think that really stemmed from?
I'd say that there was an accident in which a passenger got hurt. Maybe the driver was negligent, and the insurance company says, I don't really want to be paying out all this money because the passenger wasn't helping earn more. They're nothing but a true liability in this case.
Right. What era do you think having passengers and stuff was really rampant? All right, I won't let you think too long. I'm thinking back like in the 70s where there was a lot of hitchhiking going on, in the 60s, and back then, obviously insurance companies weren't even tracking something like that, but I could see where I'm sure there were some accidents. I don't know exactly. I wasn't in insurance back then, but I could see, that some of those accidents with attorneys come into play, and they're starting to pay out dollars and cents for an exposure they weren't even or realized they had. So, yes. It started to probably creep in the 80s and maybe 90s where you had exclusions for passengers. But so, okay. Well, next up we've got, road test. Walk. That's what I was going to when I said about Dexter and riding with Dexter and stuff. But so walk me through maybe in just a couple minutes. Where do you go with the road test? What do you look for in a driver? Is there a certain route that you take all the time? Because maybe it's a difficult route with some hills and turns and curves. Because in West Virginia, obviously, I think every time you get behind a wheel, it's an adventure.
Yes, in our area, in any direction that we go, there will be hills and turns and two-lane roads and so forth. A lot of times, have the guy go, and I will ride with him to one of our local mills and load, because then we get to cover a lot of different subjects, while we're on the road test. We have a lot of challenges explaining the penalty strap. We're a flatbed and open deck carrier, and we have a lot of challenges explaining the penalty strap that's required if the front of the load is more than 4 feet from a stopping device, such as a headache rack or a headboard,
Mhm.
and explaining that if you have split loads, instead of having the load all the way together, but you have a split load, that second pack, if it's indeed more than 4 feet from the front pack, that qualifies for the necessity of a penalty strap as well.
Penalty strap is just an extra strap. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes. And the theory is that extra strap is going to help hold the load on. And there's some truth to that. But, when you're hauling surface four side lumber, like 2x4s, 2x6s, 2x8s, 2x12s, no matter how hard you cinch down those straps, the middle section, has a tendency
Tendency
to
to
come forward.
slide. Yeah.
So the road test is a good time to see how they do in, taking care of the equipment and, making wide turns and staying in their lane at intersections, but also securing the load. So we can cover all those things and we can make known what's important to us. And one of the big things that's important to us is looking good as you go down the road. But what I mean by looking good is if you have a pack of lumber and it's an 8-foot pack of lumber and it only requires 2 straps, let's knock the DOT officer's socks off to put 3 on there for no more effort than it takes, less likely chance of being stopped.
How long does a typical road test last?
If we go and load, we're going to be together for a couple hours.
Okay.
We're not going to be driving that entire time, but driving and securing and then driving back. And it also, one of the things I like about going and picking up a load with a new guy is you can see how he does empty, you can see how he does loaded. We have some 8-9% grades here, and I've gone on road tests before, Steve, where guys lug the truck too much. They don't keep in a power band, and that's not good. But I've also gone with guys that ran the RPMs up too high, thinking that they were lubricating the engine better, but there goes your fuel mileage. So there's a happy medium there,
Right.
and we can address that as well.
Now, do you go through like the pre-trip walk around and all that? You let them basically, you're just there listening and watching. He's
A
okay.
little bit, it's almost a little bit like when all of us went to take our commercial driver's test. The 108 points that you have to hit
Right.
to go through. We might not hit all 108, but you can kind of pick up on some important experience that the guy has if he just walks over to the truck and jumps in, or the guy that says, let's go ahead and check the oil and the fluids, and I'm going to be watching for overhead power lines and looking for wet spots underneath. And, that talk, that communication tells you volumes.
Right. Now, do you tend to do most of your road tests during the day? Have you ever done some at night because of the
No,
situation? No.
they've always been daytime, but
Okay.
it's very similar to, if you ever have rental property and you're talking to somebody about renting your property, a big red flag is when the guy says, all right, so if I don't pay the rent, how long will it take before I actually have to leave? When you're doing the road test and the defenses come down a little bit, the guy says something like, well, the first 3 engines I blew, that guy wasn't too happy about it. You get some red flags there
No,
too.
no. Okay. Wow. Wow. All right. Well, did you have a chance to look at the driver log falsification? That's not pretty. It's not fun. Everybody thinks that because of the advent of the ELDs, as a driver, there's not much I got to do. I never have to fill out any paperwork anymore. I just log on and go on duty and then everything else does it for me, right? That's not the case, is it? Still got to have driver input, still got to have. Yes. Okay. So the article that I was looking at here safety compliance article that it says here basically nearly 5% of all, actually it's 5.6% of all driver related roadside inspections involve some kind of log falsification over a 4-year period. And they didn't give me the number of inspections. So I went on and I found out that between 2020 and 2024, now granted, 2024, we're only a month and a half in, maybe 2 months. There's been, take a guess how many roadside inspections have been completed?
I don't know.
10,791,000.
Wow.
So 5.6%, which didn't sound like a lot before, is now 604,000 falsification of logs, which, I like to put my attorney hat on from time to time. So what do you think happens when a driver has falsified his logs, gets into a fatality or serious accident, and the crash litigation comes back, and the plaintiff attorney, who obviously through depositions and subpoenas is going to find out all that information. What do you think is going to happen with the verdict in those cases? Basically, they're saying it's 100% of all the verdicts that, there's 5 particular factors brought against the defendant that yielded 100% verdicts in favor of the plaintiff. Obviously, falsification of logs is one of them. So
That's a
you
pretty
have
broad
that problem.
stroke, though.
Do you have
That's a
that
pretty
problem?
broad stroke.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
When you say falsification of log, it reminds me of the paper logs when we used to always get tickets for form and manner. And a lot of times that would be, the driver forgot to put the bill of lading number, or the driver forgot to label his 30-minute break. It shows that he took 30 minutes off, but he didn't label a safety break. And so those can be a little bit misleading when you say 5.6%, because that's not really endangering the public. That's just a money grab.
It is, but out of 604,000, which is quite a bit. Now, granted, once again, we're talking about 3.2 years so far. We're only 2 months roughly into 2024. So that's a lot. So, even if you drill down on that number, and maybe it's 5% of that number, now we're at 30,000, right? That are true. And obviously, what they're going towards on this is, the sleep deprivation of the driver. Is it truly, was he fatigued, when he hit my client, and caused serious injury? So, they go on to say, how do falsifications actually happen? The personal conveyance is big. Do you audit, by the way, do you audit yourself? Do you take a look at the reports for personal conveyance miles? And, they go on to talk about unassigned driving time. Do you look at that?
Yes.
With your Verizon Connect, which I know has a
Verizon Connect
robust,
has a really good tool
yes,
that will provide us the unassigned miles, and we strongly recommend against using personal conveyance at all, because
right.
it just seems it's Russian roulette.
Yeah, the article even brings up, it says you'd be better off just violating the 11-hour rule than to falsify your logs. No question. I don't think drivers realize that. They're so worried about those rules, the 14, the 11, the 70,
Steve,
70-hour rule.
Also, trucking companies are notorious for fining their drivers. This is what happens. Driver comes in, oh man, this customer needs this product 2 days ago. Nobody will take it because it's a multi-stop load. Bill, will you take it? You got the hours, man. It's got to be there. It's got to be there. So Bill takes the load, right? 2 weeks later, he comes back in. He's got a fine from his safety department Bill got fined $175 because he went 10 minutes over on his 11 hours or his 14 trying to find a place to park because dispatch told him the customer really needed this and he was doing all that he could to make it happen. Well, there's a true log falsification,
Right.
but the trucking company is making the drivers more scared a lot of times of the repercussions than the DOT.
Well, and you bring up a good point about parking and stuff, and they do say that, um, a misconception is that personal conveyance status can be used for drivers to get a safe parking place for the required rest if the first place they stop is full. They say that that is only for right after loading or loading or unloading is what that is meant for. They say that, um, if you have to use it because you're about ready to run out of your hours, the DOT is going to come back and, of course, say you should have planned better for the situation. Now you're going to suffer the consequences of an hour's violation. So, obviously, it's dispatcher's responsibility along with the driver to communicate. It's got to be that back and forth communication, I would think, right, between driver and dispatch, so that they understand that, okay, you're going to get unloaded and you've only got X number of minutes, not hours, but probably maybe 40 minutes left, right? You've just unloaded. You've got to find a safe haven parking, right? So we all know that you cannot, and if you're loaded, you're getting close to your being over on the hours, you're not allowed to, what am I thinking of here? You're not allowed to use personal conveyance to,
Can't go in the direction of your load.
yeah, right. You can't
use it to further your advancement.
further the advancement. That's correct. So, um, they also talk about, common reasons behind log falsification violations may be inadvertent. For instance, a driver may put themselves into off-duty status in a situation where regulations require them to be on duty, not driving. For example, fueling. That's supposed to be logged as on duty, not driving, correct? So a lot of drivers, there's another area of driver log falsification. So what do you do to help mitigate or reduce? First of all, does Happy have an issue with this? Have you had issues in the past with in the ELD era, not paper logs?
It's cut down a lot since the paper log days. The logbook
Right.
violations that we find or that the DOT find, either one, we still have them. And our situation being flatbed is a little bit different. I think we have a little easier situation because we are not meeting as many appointments as a dry van or a reefer. Those guys will have an appointment at 2300. We don't unload too many places at 11 p.m.
Right.
or load too many places at that hour either. So it's a little bit easier for us. But what's interesting is most of our guys are more experienced guys and will have one, maybe two that have issue with finding a place to park and will pay for parking. And the rest of the guys, it's never a problem. They figure it out.
That's a good point about the 2300 too, because a lot of people may not realize that, yeah, it's 2300. That's 11 o'clock at night. What's the big deal? There's no traffic on the roads. The problem is a lot of your truck parking is full at that time of night. So, have you ever had situations where your drivers have had to, uh, on an off ramp or so, park because there's been no parking? Shut
Oh
it down?
yes,
Yeah.
oh yes, but you don't do that in Tennessee. And let's just go ahead and kick Tennessee in the shins here because why in the world, if we want a safe environment, can we not park on an on ramp or an off ramp in Tennessee? It's against the law.
Okay.
absolutely against the law. So that makes it even more difficult to maintain safety. Which would you rather have a guy on? And by the way, we always suggest, Steve, that you don't park on the off ramp. You always park on the on ramp.
Good point.
Have
Good
you ever
point.
heard
That
of
was
that?
probably, oh yeah, I can understand that. Yeah, yeah, I
Yes.
mean, it's just an easier from a visual. Now, when you do that though, do you have to put triangles out or any type of safety visuals or not? Because you're not broke down,
Well,
but
if I were talking to my insurance agent, I would say yes. It also depends on how far you are off the road.
okay, right. So what happens in Tennessee? I guess it's an understood rule that you do not do that. And if you do, what's a typical fine for something like that?
I
Don't
don't know.
know. Don't know.
We we have
Because
not
you don't
we
do
have
it.
not
See, Happy
gotten that
Trucking
way.
does not do that.
There you go.
I thought maybe you would have heard like, hey, so and so just got fined, $573.48 for doing that. So, well, sir, we've got about looks like maybe 15 minutes or so. We're going to go into. I got some more preventables, about three of those. These are actual crashes or accidents that have happened but have been recreated digitally by computers so that obviously that we don't see who the actual people are. But let me go ahead and share. All right, let's go to the first one here. I'm not going to do any volume. I don't think I have volume. Let me turn off. Let me mute it. Okay. All right, this one, motorist out of control pass prompts a crash. So what we have, maybe we should listen to it. Can you hear that too?
I can hear you.
You cannot hear the video?
No.
Okay. We may have seen this one already. Okay, so let me see if I can let's do this here. Can you hear it now?
No.
No? All right, let me go to, let me look at my volume here. Sorry. Do this here. No, I'm not gonna be able to do that. Sorry. Let me go ahead and just get you back on so I can at least hear you and I can talk through it. All right. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I cannot hear the
That's
video.
yeah, for some reason. Okay. Let's go on. I got two others here real quick. Let's do this here. Can you hear that?
A little bit.
This is not showing the full screen.
It's a sunny morning, and tractor-trailer driver John Doe was on a divided highway with multiple lanes. He's approaching a stale red light when he notices a pickup truck in the lane to his right. The signal light turns green and Doe
Hold on one sec. I don't know why this is,
I could hear that pretty well.
yeah, I know, but it's not giving me,
accelerates slowly.
why is it doing that? Let's go back. There we go. I'm sorry. Now we'll see the,
John Doe is on a divided highway with multiple lanes. He's approaching a stale red light when he notices a pickup truck in the lane to his right. The signal light turns green, and Doe accelerates slowly and realizes that the far right lane will merge into his lane. The pickup truck driver accelerates quickly to get in front of Doe,
course.
but the driver moves over too fast, and the back of his pickup hits the right front side of Doe's truck. Was this preventable or not?
Happens probably thousands of times each day, right? No question.
Yes.
Just a typical car that's trying to speed up to get ahead of the trucker because he doesn't want to wait and be slowed down by the trucker and all that good stuff. So preventable or not, you saw what happened. He's coming up. Our driver did see that there was a truck beside him, starts to merge. Do you, as a truck driver, slow down to allow that truck to get ahead of you? Or just continue doing what you're doing and expect him to slow down and get behind you?
The video said that our driver slowed down, but I still think it's a preventable accident because he saw him coming in the mirrors, and the insurance company is going to say, "Hey, you should have slowed down more."
Yeah, let's see.
Accelerates slowly and realizes that
Accelerates
the far right
slowly.
lane will merge into his lane. The pickup truck driver accelerates quickly to get in front of Doe, but the driver moves over too fast, and the back of his pickup hits the right front side of Doe's truck. Was this preventable or not? The National Safety Council ruled it was preventable. Doe should have expected that the pickup truck would try to get ahead of him and should have watched his mirrors and made plans to yield quickly. So how does a driver train to prevent an accident like this? As a driver of a large vehicle, you must be vigilant to other vehicles around you at all times, constantly scanning your mirrors, using your hearing, and looking ahead are all ways you can read the road. You also have to expect other drivers are not as well trained and may drive erratically. It's your job as the professional driver to compensate for their mistakes and avoid risky situations.
Well, do you agree or not agree? Doesn't
I
matter.
agree.
Doesn't matter. National Safety Council said it was preventable, so we don't care what Rick says.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know. Okay, what do we got here? Is our last one, and this one, truck driver halts left-hand turn for testy pickup. Was this crash preventable? This is a pretty good one.
John Doe is rapidly approaching an intersection in the countryside. The light is green and Doe enters, planning to make a left turn. Just as he begins to turn, the pickup enters the intersection from the left through a red light. The pickup driver stops halfway through, but its location prevents John Doe from completing his turn. John Doe keeps his foot on the brake, expecting the pickup driver to back up a few inches to create some space. Seeing the pickup driver is uncooperative and won't budge, Doe checks his mirrors and backs up a foot and prepares to make a wider turn. The traffic signal changes as John Doe begins to move forward. As soon as the pickup driver has a green light, he immediately tries to accelerate around Doe's truck and flips the corner.
Can you believe that? It's just, I'm sure that happens too, quite a bit, but why the pickup truck did not back up to allow him to make his turn.
Was this accident preventable or not?
My problem
Yes.
is the fact that our semi is backing up on a on a road, with now granted there's zero traffic around. We can see that there's no traffic behind and front to the sides. We're just focusing on these two at this intersection. So, all right, you say it is preventable?
Yes.
For who though? Our driver or the pickup truck?
Well, I think it was preventable for our driver.
Okay. Why? Because I'm going to hit play and the National Safety Council is going to, it doesn't matter what you think after that, but go ahead. Let's hear what Happy Rick says.
I think that our driver should have probably just maintained his stopped position for the pickup to move around him. The pickup then takes the chance, not us, and never back up, never back up.
Okay, but the light just the light had turned yellow and getting ready to go red on our driver.
But
It's a tough, it's just when you get it. I mean, it's crazy because I don't know how many I viewed today alone of dash cam accidents. And I would say, I don't have exact numbers, but I'm sure I could find them. But just from what I, once again, viewed today, how many times the car is at fault? Road rage, a lot of brake checking going on. Do you get drivers complaining about brake checking too?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
Yep.
And these people that are driving these cars that brake check a semi, I mean, they've got to realize most semis now, not all, but more and more each month are getting dash cams, so you can only assume that your brake check is going to be on video, and turned over to the authorities. So
yeah, but there's also the fallacy that if I get hit from behind, it's always the guy behind me's fault.
dash cams are starting to change that, though. That's the beauty of a dash cam, no question.
Yes.
So, all right. Rick says this was preventable by our driver.
The National Safety Council ruled it was non-preventable. Doe wasn't responsible for the other driver's self-destructive behavior.
How about that?
Wow.
All right. We are stopping sharing. We're going back to see Rick, and we're thanking Rick for Friday. Happy Truck Talk today. Next week, once again, we're going to have a gentleman from a non-asset based brokerage that we can pick brain, and maybe he can give us an outlook on how he feels the economy may change this year. Everybody's saying, well, 2024, it's going to be much better than 2023. So we'll see what he has to say about that. But that's definitely one thing I'm going to make sure he brushes up on and maybe has some answers, but come up with some more questions if you want, and yeah. So do a lot of times you're